This week I got to talk with Kristi DeMeester about her new horror novel, Dark Sisters. I am obsessed. If you were here for the Women of Wild Hill episode recently with Kirsten Miller, this is right in that vein. Like, if you're a fan of that, you are going to love this. I would almost call this like the R-rated version of it. But here is the synopsis. In this fiercely captivating novel, horror meets historical fiction when a curse bridges generations, binding the fates of three women. Anne Bolton, a healer facing persecution for witchcraft, bargains with a dark entity for protection, but the fire she unleashes will reverberate for centuries. Mary Shepard, a picture-perfect wife in a suffocating community, falls for Sharon and begins a forbidden affair that could destroy them both. And Camilla Burson, the rebellious daughter of a preacher, defies conformist expectations to uncover an ancient power as her father's flock spirals into crisis. So, I was all here for this for so many different reasons. There is righteous female rage. There is the exploration of how calling a woman a witch was a way to discredit her and discount her and get rid of her. We have a girl who's a pastor's daughter just trying to figure out what she actually believes compares to what she grew up around. It is fantastic. And it's one of those books where just because there's this one other timeline that's like in the 1700s, it doesn't feel like true historical fiction, but you're just kind of like getting good context for what's happening by having that chapter. I really loved getting to talk to Kristi about it because she also used to be a literature teacher. And so some of the witch stories and lore and how she kind of approached that, it was really cool to hear these examples that she had from her time as a teacher. And then also how her experience in really high demand religion growing up inspired some of the stories. So that being said, let's hear from Kristi. I am so excited to talk about Dark Sisters with Kristi DeMeester. But I did want to get to know a little bit about you first before we dive into the book. So what was your journey to writing? Like, did you always know you wanted to, or like, how did that all come together?
It's really funny. So I came to writing really late, which is strange to me because I feel like I hear from so many other writers who they started writing when they were children, that they were putting little books together and stapling them and all of that. And I was always a reader. Reading was my number one activity, my number one hobby, and loved it, but never really, I dabbled in writing, but it was never anything that I really took seriously. I would write really shitty poems when I was in high school, full of, whoever I had a crush on at the moment, super angsty. But I didn't start taking it seriously until I was in my late 20s. And I was looking to go back and get my master's degree. And I really didn't want to get it in education because I was a teacher. And the idea of having to go and sit through school again for more education-based pedagogical crap, I just went, no, I can't do it. Not for me. And so the school that I was looking at also had a master's program in professional writing. And I went, well, I've always loved reading and I like the concept of writing. So I'll just do that. And then all of a sudden it was like this door opened and I went, oh, this is what I was supposed to be doing this entire time. I can't believe that I didn't ever think to jump to the other side and try it from the other end. And so from there, it was really just a lot of short stories, a lot of kind of, sharpening your teeth and learning the ins and outs of how things should be. And once, as part of my program, I had to do a portion of a novel as kind of like your thesis. And once I did that, I went, okay, I'm going to take some time to learn who I am as a writer, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, but I'm going to get back to novel writing at some point. And so it took about 10 years to really get to the point where I felt comfortable in novel writing. And even that first novel was
It's
It's
gotta
in the
just be so
world.
intimidating.
And it exists and it's in the world. And, I'm a very different writer now than I was then, but it, I don't think I really started doing novel stuff until I was in my 30s.
That's cool though. So you never know. Like it's like obviously if you want to write, you typically do need to read a lot. So it's like you kind of had built up that part of being a writer for years and years and years. It's just it is. I think sometimes it is hard to be like, am I a writer? Could I write something? Like you just don't think
Right.
of it always.
Yes. And especially as someone who already has imposter syndrome,
Oh,
where
well, yeah.
you walk around going, not me, I can't, and I could never. And so it took a while to swallow it. Even now, when I meet people for the first time and they ask me, what do
Yes.
you do? What do you do for work? I have
Mm-hmm.
a very hard time saying, well, I'm a writer,
Yeah.
because it still doesn't feel that's not a real job. What are you
Oh my
talking
gosh. I know. You've written so many books now too. Like the imposter syndrome is just sticking with you.
Right, yeah, that's a friend I think I'll never be rid
Ugh.
of. I think that's coming with me forever.
Ugh, yeah, that one is tricky. It's just super tricky.
Yeah.
Um, what so you do write I think all horror. There may be some that aren't. Was there something specifically that drew you to horror, or when you started writing was that just like what was in your head?
I have always been a horror fan, or a horror
Nice.
girly, and was always my favorite genre, was always what I gravitated to read, to watch. But I didn't write it for a very long time, particularly when I started in my MFA, because, and I think a lot of people who come out of MFA programs will tell you, genre is frowned upon.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's getting better now. I know that my school's program now, they're great. They offer genre-based classes. And so I think that window is really opened. But at least back then, you didn't do that. You didn't
And wait,
write.
just a quick question, because I've heard this conversation too, like genre movies and genre books. And so in the context of an MFA, is it kind of like literary fiction is like what they're saying is like writing and then it because it's like I feel like everything has a genre, but when people use that term, it typically means like not literary fiction, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
That's really how they defined it. They really wanted that strict literary tradition
Okay.
of, Hemingway and Faulkner with the serial numbers like brushed off.
Oh,
Which is great. I've
yes.
things for years and they have their place and they're wonderful, but
Right.
it's
You just
not
want
what
it to
I,
be inclusive. Yeah.
yeah, it's not what I wanted at all. And so once I, and it's actually really funny because once I started working on that thesis, that portion of the novel, it was in literary tradition. And my
Mhm.
wonderful advisors sat me down at some point and said, I think you're writing a horror novel.
Oh
Why don't
wow.
you just do that? And I went, it felt like Oliver Twist, like with my hand.
Yes.
And so finally and it's so strange that someone else has to give you permission to do the thing that you really want to do.
I think with creative stuff specific
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah. It's why can't I just do this thing? But I said, okay. And so from then it was strictly horror I've dabbled, I guess, really in the beginning of writing short stories. It was more
Yeah.
like weird fiction is, I guess, what you would
Okay.
call it, or cosmic, just because that was where I was leaning. But in my
Mhm.
heart, it's always been horror. I love it. I love it so
Mhm.
much.
I used to like mostly be a thriller reader and now I'm reading kind of like almost everything except romance. Nothing against romance. It's me. It's not the genre. Um but I like probably about 18 months ago I read a book No Road Home by John Fram and it like uses horror similar to Dark Sisters in a social sense and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is fun like the different things that horror can talk about and like kind of what am I trying to say like almost hyperbolized for the sake of like really talking about things that are actually happening." So I got so obsessed with horror and I've just been reading all the horror that I can this year, so I'm with you on that.
love it.
If you're an author who's listening right now, I'm sure that sometime recently you thought to yourself, I really just want to write and I don't want to have to think about social media. The good news is I have a couple solutions for you. If you just need help brainstorming ideas and building out posts in Canva, my monthly consulting might be good for you. If you're about to publish a book, I can help you with a book trailer. The other option is accumulating a content bank of both long and short form content that can be used now and generically into the future. I love reading your books, and I know you don't love figuring out how to post on social media, so I would love to help. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
Horror is a great genre for a kind of social commentary as well, because, and I've talked about this in other places, but I mean, it's the genre of monsters. And so it's a really great opportunity to take a monster and say, okay, can we take this and look at how all of these smaller events that maybe we don't pay attention to become monstrous. And I think it's an easy door for people to open, because in their minds, oh, it's just a spooky book. It's just meant, and you're going, no, there's actually other things here. Right. And then at the end, all of a sudden they, oh, well, I never thought of it that way.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I completely agree. It was kind of what even got me into some historical fiction, because historical horror, kind of exactly what you're saying there, where historical horror can really show you like, oh, these are the things that have led to even like what our society is like now, basically, which is a cool segue is that you have 3 different timelines going on in Dark Sisters. And so we get like all the way back to the 1700s, correct? Yeah, the 1700s. Yeah. We have 1950 and we have 2008, 2006.
2007.
2000. I just completely missed it on both things.
Yeah, we got it.
And so it's kind of another really good example of that. So kind of what was your inspiration for this story, and did you always know you wanted to tell it that way?
I didn't. And it was through a lot of trial and error. It's interesting that this book, well, I mean, honestly, with it being 3 timelines, it was particularly difficult to write. Just in wanting to make sure that not only the voices of the characters are distinct and they each have their own things that are propelling them forward, but then also that you're capturing the authenticity of that time period to the best of, well, I guess I should say to the best of my ability. Right. And that can get tricky.
I bet.
But it honestly, the whole core of the story started with the Dark Sisters themselves as just as an entity. I'd written a very different book where they were mentioned and but not heavily featured. And as I was writing that book, what they came to represent, I really liked the fact that they were serving as this mirror for a society to say, this is what happens when all of these small things add up. Yes. And this is the curse that comes out of it when we just tend to ignore or put things into the corner or let these very small moments of misogynistic insults happen. Yes. And so I came to the end of that book, and my agent, who was wonderful and very, very smart, said, listen, there's a lot of books on the market with this exact same premise right now of it, because it was about grooming, like a teacher grooming a student. And I just don't think now's the time. And so I said, okay, that's fair. But I couldn't let go of them, of what they were. And then it just felt like kismet, where everything just lined up just right. I was doing a lot of journaling about my childhood and dealing with purity culture. Yes. And growing up in a fundamentalist religion. And so I already had that. Oh,
yeah, I loved that. I resonated with that timeline a lot. I'm also a pastor's kid, so.
Oh gosh! Oh, so you got it from both. Oh, bless. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it was one of those things where, and it's interesting. People that I've talked to that have had similar experiences, it clicks. And yes, I feel like for some people who haven't, they feel that I'm exaggerating. I'm like, no,
not even a little bit.
Well, maybe not some of it.
Well, that's true.
You're not a portion, because that's the horrific component that I'm really trying to get it in there. But so so that was happening. I was doing a lot of journaling, a lot of like kind of reminiscing on those experiences. And then Roe v. Wade was overturned. Wow. And I went, wow. And it really felt like a punch in the gut.
Yes.
And so I still had the idea of the Dark Sisters in my mind, and then
Mm.
and all of these things were swirling and happening. And so I had just started writing, just kind of free writing without really any intention. And then Camilla's story started to come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went, okay, I think I have something now. And then as I was building her story of, I have to have a foundation of why this is happening. And then Anne's timeline came.
Yeah.
And then as I was going through and I was talking with my agent about the book, and she said, I think we need one more perspective to really hinge how all of this connects. And so that was when Mary's timeline came in.
Yeah.
So it was a long, arduous process of bringing it all together, but really the foundations were I was pissed.
I can feel it. I am too, and I felt it.
I was pissed, and so
Yes.
that's where it came from.
Yeah. The thing that's a couple different things. I've been learning a lot about Christian nationalism, and that really originated so much at the end of the 50s and going into the 60s. So I feel like that timeline was so important too, because that was kind of where I read a book called Jesus and John Wayne by Kristi DeMeester, and I think she has another last name. But it's all about how politicians saw an opportunity with Christianity to get voters. And then that's where this like prevalence of like actually very hyper masculine Jesus, thus the Jesus and John Wayne, like in my interpretation, in some other people's interpretations, Jesus actually had some feminist qualities if we look at him historically and like the way that he took care of people. And it was that time period where they were like, let's like kind of convince people like you're a good American if you're a good Christian, and this is what a good Christian looks like. And they just kind of tapped into how easy it is to control people through religion. So that's been something I've been learning about a lot more this year, because I too am pissed about a lot of stuff. And I found that reading nonfiction has, at least it helps me feel grounded and like I know things that happened, and it made me feel less like I could be gaslit. So that just like worked for me. So yeah, that middle timeline I think is kind of a good bridge of like, and then this is kind of how we started really going towards misogyny. Not that we were ever matriarchal or anything in this country, but yeah.
I'll have to look that book up because
I'll send you a link.
And
it's fantastic. And then I interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago. His name's John Fugelsang, and he wrote a book called Separation of Church and Hate. And he talks about his like log line is like his mom was a sister, she was a nun, and his dad was a brother, a Franciscan monk, and so he's also a comedian. So he's like, my mother who was a sister met a brother who was a monk, and they got married. So brother and sister got married and had me. It's like how he kind of explains it. But he's like, I got tired of people using like the religion that I saw my parents using for good and helping people, and using it as a way to like cloak their hatred. So it's really powerful too. And he kind of writes it from the perspective of, if you're in conversations with people who are mixing politics and Christianity, the Bible is actually probably more on your side than theirs. And so then it kind of helps you have dialogue where you're like, tell them, he's like, if they're going to be Bible thumpers, thump them back with the Bible. And I'm like, that is so powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that as I was going, well, not just as I was growing up and disconnecting from a lot of these very deep-seated, long-standing feelings and ideologies that I had growing up in that religion. But as I was writing, that was something that I wanted to make certain that I brought to the forefront of. And I also hope readers take away from the book as well. I'm not hating on faith as a concept. Of what I am frustrated with is how easily faith can be manipulated to benefit greed, to benefit hypocrisy, and how frequently that happens.
Yes.
and
And it
how
is lots of religions. It's not
oh,
even just
absolutely.
Christianity.
Yeah, it's not
Mhm.
Western exclusively, and it's not
No.
Christianity exclusively. It's anyone who is corrupted that is in a position of power, in a position where you're a leader of a faith-based whatever. And
Right.
that was what was so deeply impactful. And I think Mary's storyline, Camilla's storyline, and Mary's is even double-edged, because you start to believe that the reason for your own unhappiness and the reason for your own sense of I'm doing wrong is you,
Yes.
even though it's these external things that are
Yes.
pressuring you or telling you you're doing wrong, or you are not living to expectation of it. The
Mhm.
purity culture thing is unbelievable to me.
Yes.
Of that, I believed for a very long time that if someone, if a man sinned,
Mhm.
if he had a thought that
Mhm.
was about me because I wore a shirt that was too long, it was my fault.
Same. Mhm.
And that is just
It's
unreal.
insane, like taking 0 responsibility.
Because I've had people ask me before too about the purity balls. Oh, does that really happen? Yes, they really happen. Oh, did you do
Yes.
one? Yes, I did one. What did the boys do? Nothing.
Nothing.
They
At
did nothing.
all.
Did they have one? No, they did not have one. Did they have
Mm-mm.
to pledge their virginities to their mothers? No. They didn't
Mm-mm.
have to wear their
The
rings,
purity
and
ring,
yeah, they didn't
yep.
wear the purity ring of the, it was only us. And then it's couched in this very attractive wrapping paper.
Mhm.
Don't you want to wear basically a prom dress or basically a wedding dress? Don't you
Mm.
want to get a really nice piece of jewelry, a party just for you? Want to
Mhm.
wear a tiara, get your hair? Of course.
Yes,
That sounds,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that is so, I guess, interesting is the word for it, about that dynamic is it's also hurting the men, like in the sense that like it's propagating this idea. It is like this other side of purity culture where they're like, you're bad if you have that thought. And then the
Right.
next thing is, but you can blame women for it. So we
Right.
have, it's the same thing where they're still kind of being told, like, you're not supposed to even have those thoughts, which actually the thoughts in general are okay if you saw a hot woman and you were like, "Oh, she's beautiful," or like it's okay if you notice it. Just don't rape her, please. Like
Right.
let's not do that.
Not to
But
that.
it's hurting them just as much because it's like
Yes.
doing that same programming where it's like you're a bad person for having that thought and
Right.
then it's extending the like, but it's women's fault, not your fault.
Yes. Because
Like,
it's also
oh,
programming that you're not in control of your own body,
yes.
and that it's okay if you're not in control of your own body.
Mhm.
And that's equally awful.
Right. It like
Because
perpetuates it all.
right, because then you get to internalize and externalize the shame that you feel, and
Yeah.
none of it's good. And
Mhm.
but it was yeah, that as I was writing there were certain scenes and certain moments that I was
Yeah.
having flashbacks and going, gosh,
Yeah.
just
I know for me it happens sometimes now. I've been removed for it for about 13 years now. So it is one of those things where like in general, I'm not thinking about it that much in my day to day. And it's also because I did therapy in my 20s. Like it's not like I just magically
right,
left and it went away.
fine.
But every now and then, kind of what you're saying, every now and then, like I see something in the news lately and I'm like, oh, that was what I grew up around. That is weird.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the other moments of, well, because I was also, our church was a, even though it was fundamentalist Pentecostal, it was
Mhm.
also a megachurch, and that materialism and money was really
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, the
And
prosperity gospel.
yes, that it's, having money means that God chose you and
Mhm.
God blessed you because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And
Mhm.
so all of a sudden, that sense of putting on a show becomes really
Mhm.
important as well.
Very.
Which again is so ironic considering everything that Jesus actually teaches.
Right. That's what
But
I've been learning.
yeah, it was. I lost where I was going. Oh well, it's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, the idea of the megachurch is it couldn't be like this. That is the kind of stuff that had Jesus flipping tables is basically
Right,
what I come back to. I'm like he did not like big power like that is
the
so easily
Pharisees.
corrupted.
Right,
Yes.
absolutely. And that was, I think that was the biggest takeaway as you're right, you do a lot of therapy when you come out of it, because and
Yes.
it took me a little longer to get to it, but and it
Oh
was
yeah.
all of a sudden this awareness of, let's really look at the reality of what's happening here
Mm-hmm.
and evaluate the logic in it. And
Yes,
everything, and so it turns your world upside down, because everything that
it
you just
does.
took as truth and what was normal, and all of a sudden it's not. And so, okay, so I love to ask other people who grew up with
Yes.
this question, and I hope you don't mind, because
So
this was
I'm
my
open
own.
about it. Very
Yes.
open about it. Yeah.
So you grew up in it then,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
A Methodist church. Yeah.
Okay. So children, I have always, or I find, are very perceptive. Of They are
Mm-hmm.
highly emotionally intelligent, and they pick up on things very, very easily. They may just
Mm-hmm.
not know how to articulate them, or they're told that they're not allowed to articulate them. So when
Correct.
you were a kid, did you clock when things were hypocritical and be like,
Yes.
okay, okay.
I I remember saying to like, so I had a mine. I was extremely sheltered too. So like even Camilla is like having more friendships than I was even allowed to have.
Yes.
We were very much an in the world and not of the world family.
We were
Like,
as well.
is it Dobson? I can't think of his first name. Like it
Focus
was
on the
like,
family.
yes, focus on the family, like Veggie Tales into middle
Yes.
school.
Yes.
Cable TV was
James
sinful.
Dobson. Oh yeah.
Oh
We didn't have
man,
TV, or
we
no.
didn't either. I had like none of those references, but I remember at one point saying to someone when I was like at school and away from home and being like, I just wish that I just wish it could be I could like have an argument with my mom that was moderated like in court. I remember saying that to her and being like, I just wish I was like, because I feel like it doesn't make sense, but no one cares when I'm making sense. So yeah, it was there. I didn't know what to do about it until I got to college, but yeah, I was definitely aware of it.
Oh yes, because it does. It makes people, they're the babies.
The
It
babies.
makes you love it. It makes you feel crazy. It really does, because you're being told all of these things, and then you're watching someone do the exact opposite, but you're not allowed to point and say, "But why is that okay?"
Right. Right.
So,
There I was hardcore, like the purity culture was very, very, very intense. My first stop. I'm trying to talk about something very important.
and it's
He's
not
mad
true.
for us.
I Here, here.
My first sex talk, my dad put a glass of water on the table and like crumpled leaves into it and then crumpled dirt into it and then put rocks in it and then handed it to me and was like, "Can you make the water clean again?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"No." And he was like, "That's what sex does." And like the whole idea of like you need to have your sex is the gift to the one spouse you're gonna have. So like that was it. That was like basically what I got.
yeah. That's the talk,
um
right?
Not helpful at all. Meanwhile, my mom was sleeping with the family best friend for 8 years and everyone knew. Like when it completely came out, no one in the church was surprised. And I was just like, how does this work? I'm confused.
Right, right. Oh, absolutely. Of that, we had that was ooh, and that was the hypocrisy part of it that just used to drive me insane,
Yes.
because our preacher, and this happened shortly after we left the church, because my parents divorced. Oh, that was it's a whole
Oh,
thing. My parents
yeah,
divorced
mine did too.
and then we got kicked out of the church because divorce isn't allowed, and we didn't have enough money to justify being able to stay.
Oh,
So, other families had parents in the church who had been divorced in the past, but they had money
that
and we
is
were poor.
oh,
So it was like, well, you can continue to attend the church, but your children are no longer welcome to go to school here.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it,
Wow.
it was one of those things where we leave the church, and
Mm-hmm.
our preacher, who was very well known
Mm-hmm.
in the apostolic
Oh
realm,
yeah.
and was famous isn't the right word, but I guess as famous as you can be in the Pentecostal whatever. And
Right.
it was probably a year or two later, he left his wife, long marriage. This man was in his 50s. I think
Oh
they'd been
wow.
married for 30 something years, and left his wife for this 22-year-old
Man.
No, that would have been
Okay.
so much better. I
We
would
had
have
that with
loved
the
that
choir director.
so much. No, she was, I can't think of the word now, where you travel to overseas to try to convert people.
Oh, like missionaries.
Missionary, thank you.
Hmm.
But he ran off with her. He took every bit of the money from the church,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was a mega church. He emptied the bank account and took off.
Wow.
Now, you would think that because of that, that man would be vilified. No,
Correct.
he's
Yeah.
preaching. He was preaching within the next 3 years, like at some other mega church in Texas.
I hate
And,
that so much.
right. And so I just remember hearing about that and going, if that doesn't sum everything up, I don't know what does.
Exactly. Yeah. I had someone on just as this airs a week ago. His name is Keith Giles, and I just read a book by him called the Quantum Gospel of Mary, and he digs into the Gospel of Mary that was excluded from the Bible because if anyone doesn't know, Jesus is crucified, and then 300 years later, Rome, who crucified him, decided which books to pull together to create the Bible, and they went like into Christianity. There was some very purposeful exclusion of female narratives included in that Bible, and so he was a really interesting conversation because he's kind of been a theologian for years, and he's written lots of books about all kinds of stuff within Christianity, and then also kind of who Jesus actually was. But he was talking about, he had a friend in Congress who was trying so hard to push through that, like, if churches wanted to be a nonprofit, the reasoning behind most churches getting to be nonprofits is they put so much back into the community, is the reasoning. That's just all it is. And he had a friend who was trying so hard to be like, if you want to have the nonprofit label as a church, then like this percentage of your earnings needs to actually be going back into the community. Nobody wants to sign it. Absolutely nobody wants it to be law. And I'm like, it does need to be that way. It's so unfair. And then like this dude's just like stealing money that was never even taxed. Like, it's such a racket.
Yes.
It's wild.
Right. And the mentality becomes, well, what we're giving back to the community is a sense of faith and forgiveness. And it's all abstract. It's never anything
Correct.
real, right? If it's not we're giving back to food banks, it's not we're helping people who are unhoused, it's all this theoretical.
Yes.
Well, we're hosting a women's retreat next week, and people can come and we'll give them a free meal.
Right.
Well, la-di-da. And yet also, even though the tithing plate goes around every week, there's also fundraisers throughout the year. And it just makes you wonder.
Yes. And like you mentioned earlier, and I like to mention it too, there are some churches who are doing it.
Yes.
By and large, when you get to the mega church level, that's really specifically what we're even talking about in this context, is like when there's just that much wealth.
Yes.
It's kind of
that reminded me of the thing that I forgot earlier. The other thing that I watched as I had initially started drafting the book was, I think it was on HBO, documentary called The Way Down.
Oh, okay.
That was about a woman preacher of a megachurch who had grown that congregation because she started a weight loss program. Wow. And that was basically, Jesus doesn't want you to be fat.
Oh, dude.
And
my mom loves to use gluttony to fat shame. We would like leave church and she started fat shaming. I'm like, are you kidding me? So go on.
One of the 7 sins. You should. Yes. That's not what Jesus wants for our bodies. And that's exactly what it was. And it was a whole program there were men involved, but it was specifically catered to women.
Typically.
The idea of, if you just pray a little more, if you just donate to your church a little more, you won't be fat.
Oh my God. And
it was such an insidious kind of counter crossing of just so many things. And I had my jaw on the floor the entire time. And
I want to watch this.
It's fascinating, because the thing is again, underneath that seedy underbelly of the churches, we're encouraging child abuse.
Correct.
There were a lot of weird sexual perversions happening. The leader of that church, the woman, I can't remember her name now, but if you just look up the way down and you look pastor
Mhm.
or preacher, you'll find her. She had hair to here, the higher to Jesus.
Oh, okay. I have seen, yep. Okay, go ahead.
But like she left her long-term husband and took up with some young Hollywood wannabe actor.
Wow.
And then as they were in the middle of making this documentary, the husband, and I think a couple other people all died in a plane crash. And it's, I remember watching it though. And even though it wasn't Pentecostal, my husband and I watched it together. I said, this is how I grew up.
Yes.
This mentality of
Mhm.
the way you look is
Mhm.
so important.
Mhm.
And you both were just blown away.
Yeah, it's what's really unfortunate is what I've kind of been connecting more this year is how much Christian fundamentalism, Christian nationalism, patriarchy, and capitalism all together benefit from women being weak and as small as possible. But then, like, all of those together also are kind of why pedophilia is so rampant in different areas of the church, like even the Catholic Church. I didn't grow up in it, but there's that there. And so this like obsession with women's bodies looking like children's bodies is alarming, but it's almost like all of those things together have like reinforced it over and over and over again that we should like be as small as possible.
Absolutely. And not just that, of it's this mentality as well of a lack of it, or forcing women to not think independently.
Correct. Yeah.
And if the younger that we can stop that, the
Mhm.
better, because we're not going to advance to a point of any kind of logical independent thought. And
Mm-mm.
that was part of what was so disturbing, even for the purity balls for me, is it wasn't for
Mhm.
18-year-olds of as
Mm-mm.
you're coming into your womanhood. It was for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, girls, children
Mhm.
who
Yes.
don't, who may or may not even know what sex
Right.
is and don't need to know that yet.
Mhm.
And yet, like but most of you hadn't had your period, and
Right.
you're going through this process of saying all these things that you're pledging to your dad, and I'm going, why are we doing it so
I
young?
know.
What is this indoctrination really doing?
Right. It still weirds me out. I, obviously, if it's what you want and it's done in like a kind and loving way, I understand upholding tradition, but I still don't understand why people ask the father for the daughter's hand in marriage. Like
Right.
that would not have gone over well if I felt like it was not my choice.
Right. Right. Of it is, if it's whose permission, why do you need his
Yes. Like I'm the one who's gonna have to live with this man
permission?
forever.
Isn't it me?
I think it should be my choice.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Well, I see why I connected with this book and your writing so much. I think we know why. The other thing kind of to all of this is needing to discredit women in a way that we've been doing that for centuries is by calling them witches.
Mm.
So how did you know, like, I'm assuming you probably knew that you were going to be writing about witches with the Dark Sisters, maybe. But what was it like kind of building a world around that?
So witchcraft and witches in general has been one of my most favorite horror genres since day one. I
Yeah.
find it so fascinating. And as I got older, one of the fascination I think as a child comes in magic making.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
this sense of being powerless, but by some magical something, you're going to be granted power. And
Yeah.
that felt very wonderful as a young kid who felt like she had no control over anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fascination really started there. But then as I got older, I never looked at witches as evil
Mm-mm.
or Satan worshiping, because to me, even though that's what I was told, I I saw what was happening and I went, that doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
there was the children eating and all of that that you would have in fairy tales. But
Mhm.
even that, of a lot of the time, I was like, well, that kid deserved it.
Right.
Hansel
Yeah.
and Gretel were eating her house.
Yes.
Now they deserved it. So there was that part of my brain. But then I got older and I went into teaching, and I taught for 13 years. And the one consistent every year was American Lit.
Oof.
And I taught honors American literature every year.
Oh, wow.
And so every year for those 13 years, I taught the Crucible.
Mm.
And then a number of those years, I taught the Scarlet Letter.
Mm.
And in looking at those foundational texts, because I would always try to establish context for my students of, okay, I know that Miller, this is an allegory. We're not really talking about the Salem witch trials. We're talking about the Red Scare. We're talking about the sweep of communism in the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
But these things pair so well because if you go back and you look historically at what was actually happening during the witch trials and during the burning times, these accusations were, one, they were baseless, but they were fear-based.
Correct.
Because it was easy, because of belief and Puritanism, to take the thing in the woods. So you're indigenous people, we don't understand.
Correct.
Things are dark, and demonize them. That's devil related.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was also very easy to take women who not necessarily were just healers, because that in itself, that's its own ball of wax to unpack.
I know the fact that it that was a big chunk of it,
That it was a woman
wonderful resource right there.
Right. that were then vilified. But it was more so, I think, that single women, single women with money, single women with land.
Yes.
And I had to point that out. I would point that out every year of saying, you look at the women who were accused of, there was always a reason behind it. It was never witchcraft. It was jealousy. It was greed. Your land borders mine. You're a single woman. No one's going to miss you. You're easy to accuse because what are you doing over there all by yourself all day, every day? And now I have your land. Now I have your cattle. Now I have your gold. And that was the true foundation of it was taking.
Yes.
And that witchcraft for me became about that sense of that sense of disparity of we look at women as a threat because they have something that we want. And you can call that magic, but a lot of the time that's prosperity.
Yes.
In some capacity. And we want it for ourselves. And how do we go about taking it? We vilify that thing that is actually really helpful. And one of the poems that I would teach in along with it was a poem by Margaret Atwood called Half Hanged Mary. Beautiful poem. And really heartbreaking.
Have you read her memoir? I just got it, but I haven't listened yet. Okay.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I have it as well. It's I'm with it, and I haven't gone through it yet, but
yeah,
I have to.
I do too. I keep getting other books on Libby.
But there was a portion of it as well, and I explore this idea a little bit in Dark Sisters of part of what I think patriarchal bullshit does is it also makes women too afraid to speak. And there's a section in the poem where they hang her, and because she's been accused of witchcraft, and she's a woman who lives alone, and she has cattle, and she has land, and she has money. They hang her, and she's looking out over the congregation of people who've come to watch. And she's looking at not at the men, she's looking at all of the women. And she's kind of mentally pointing out each one and saying, I helped you. I helped your baby who had the croup. And I helped you when you were dying. And I helped flush another baby out of you when you didn't want it. But then there's this sense of release and forgiveness because she has this moment where she's like, she could be angry.
Wow.
She's like,
it's
I could
kind of reminiscent to the crucifixion then.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You've sinned.
But from a female's perspective. Yeah.
I understand why you can't help me.
Yeah.
That you would then be implicated, that you would then be where I am. I know it gives me
every single time.
chill bumps and start to tear up because I spent what an ultimate, and I felt this very deeply in Dark Sisters where I've said that, there's judgment, but I want there to also be salvation and acceptance because she says, I understand. I understand. Let me be the fall. Let me be the person person who takes it because I'm strong enough to take it. Now, in the
But
end, she
she
actually
wasn't gonna live any other way is
right.
what her
I wasn't going to
personality
do this
was.
anyway.
Yeah.
But the great thing at the end of that poem is that she does get her vengeance. Is that when they come back in the morning to cut her down, she's still alive.
Oh, I love this. Oh my God.
So she's still alive, and now they're all so afraid of her. They
Yes.
cut her down and leave her there. And so she was like, I wasn't a witch before, but I am now. And they just let
That
her
is powerful. Can I ask you a really huge favor? One of the biggest indicators in audience growth and podcast popularity is ratings and reviews. I am always going to be growing Book Wild and the range of guests that we're able to have. But the one thing that you can really do that would help grow Book Wild is rate and review on whichever platform you listen to. And if you do rate and review, send me a screenshot because I would love to send you some Book Wild bookmarks. Now let's get back to the episode. That is like an OG good for her moment.
and one
Which
of
is
them,
actually how I felt watching Frankenstein too.
you are the second person in the last 2 days to I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
Have to okay, because I started to watch it. My husband comes in and goes, don't watch it without me.
Oh, you're like, it's a long one. When are we gonna find the time? Yeah.
It's usually at nighttime. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I can't. I don't have
Yes.
a dream. But yeah, so that was that same mentality of
Yeah. It's wild. I watched Frankenstein here recently. And then I just got back from a book event for a book called I, Medusa by Ayanna Gray. And it is like her origin story. It's like Medusa when she's like 17 years old and she doesn't get the curse until near the end of the book.
Oh
And
wow.
it's all of these themes. Like it's all the same theme. So it's like that Frankenstein, Dark Sisters, and then a couple months ago I read The Women of Wild Hill by Kristen Miller, which is another like female rage, good for her all the way. But to what you were talking about at the event last night, Ayanna, the author, was talking about how we sometimes we think it is just men that uphold the patriarchy, and it is not. Like there are women who have devotedly, especially in Congress currently, I'm just going to say it, who have devotedly upheld stuff, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Girl, that's
And
my district.
oh no.
That is my district. And every time I just want to pull everything out of myself in a rage, but
I bet. But yeah, it's this idea that proximity to power won't save you in the end. And we've seen it even happen even with her. Like Trump, she used to be kind of a lapdog, and then he like cast her out the second that she wasn't 100% on board with him.
Yeah,
and
so
she's resigning now too,
resigning.
right after she gets her pension.
Yeah, I also think there's another reason behind that. I think she's going for a governor run, but
that makes, yeah, I could see that too. But it's like the proximity to power is where some women are like, oh, and I understand. I also know there's a lot of nuance because it takes a lot to want to stand up against something and go past the part of yourself that is in self-preservation mode and is made, like you're saying, like these women aren't helping her while she's up there. But also, if you're so terrified, it's a very specific personality that's going to want to be like, well, I'm still going to stand up for what's right, but it does not always protect you in the end. They like right. Women quickly, it's like Handmaid's Tale. Serena is the way when I'm like kind of trying to explain the concept to people. The second they need a pawn or a fall guy, it's going to be you. It's not going to be men. Like it didn't protect you.
No, absolutely not. And that was something I wanted to play with. That exact idea was something I wanted to play with Vera's character.
Mm-hmm.
She has a moment where she has the option to make a decision. Do I help or do I not?
Mm-hmm.
And that fear of,
yeah.
I feel that fear.
Yes.
I put myself in these moments all the time where I think to myself, well, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard, I think, especially when you start to take into consideration all of the other factors that go into one person's life. I mean, I think, well, Correct. If it was just me, yeah, well, I have a child.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that mean? And so it's, and so in putting that on Vera and then having her have recognition after the fact of, I made the wrong choice because it didn't save me in the end. No. It didn't help me at all.
Yeah.
And what that means. So
yeah, it's tricky. And I'm not even coming from judgment all the time with women who do. There's really good. This is reminding me too of there's a book called The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali, and it's this like decades spanning. I think it spans 40 or 50 years of their life. No, it was more because it's like when they're 8 and then like finally at the end they're like in their 60s or 70s.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's these two friends and one of them, Homa, is like cannot stand to live in a world with so much injustice. And she's growing up in Iran right before religious fundamentalism took it over in the 60s, I think. But like women had careers, like, and it was news to me, like the way that it's portrayed to us is like Iran has always been like this, like they've
Right.
always hated women. Like, no, it was a really religious regime that came through. There are women who were lawyers and overnight all of a sudden couldn't be. But the book does a really good job of like the two characters. Ellie feels strongly about it and feels ambitious, but like is terrified to stand up against anything. And Homa is like, I can't stand to sit here and not say something. And it's so good because there's no judgment on either.
Hmm.
However, I think it's still worth like all of us understanding that like turning on each other isn't what's gonna, it's not gonna save anyone within women, especially, and other minorities too.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been reading a lot of books in this
I
theme.
was gonna say, I have a whole list now of things that I have to go and get because
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of it too is probably like I think more horror comes out like in the like end of the year too, so that might be some of it, but they're such powerful stories, and even the fiction ones for me like help me have hope.
yes.
Uh did you feel that way writing any of it? Did it kind of like give you some bits of hope even though it might be bittersweet?
I think so. Of
Mhm.
particularly as I knew or as the end started coming
Yeah.
and I knew where things were headed. And it's bittersweet because you recognize that this is probably the best ending that they could have. It's
Mhm.
not wonderful and
Mhm.
it doesn't solve everything, but
Mhm.
it's a step forward. And that's better than stagnating where they were and having to
Yeah.
kind of repeat these patterns over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And that, because that's the thing as well. And without giving away the ending or without
Yeah.
spoiling anything, everyone that is the problem doesn't go away, if that makes sense.
Right.
Not everyone, the
And
central
it
ones.
never will be
And
either, unfortunately.
it never will be as for
Yeah.
everyone that goes of and it's there's three more that sprout up where that left off. And
Mhm.
I think that it's a reminder of that this is a fight that's worth continuing
Mhm.
because
Yes.
there are going to be those continuations and that these things that don't stop. And so that sense of good for her is something like take it, put it in your pocket and take it with you
Yes.
because it's we have to keep going.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so, yeah.
I agree. Um, you did talk about there are three very distinct voices. Was there anything you did to kind of make them each feel distinct? And like the other thing I noticed, we have first person perspective for Anne,
Hmm.
and then the other are third person. So was there any thought process going on with that part too?
For the choice, I know.
Okay, sometimes it's just how it happens. Yeah.
Right. It was just kind of how it happened. And I wish I had a good reason why, or I wish I could put my finger on
Hmm.
exactly why it felt right to have
Yeah.
Anne be in first person. But it was, I think I needed the first person in order to capture the voice of that time period.
Yeah.
And it was interesting as well because originally I wrote all the these and thous and thines and wouldsts and that very particular time period's voice. And when I gave it to my editor, she said, I think I get what you're doing. I love how authentic you are. I think we got to take them out because
Yeah.
it's going to slow the reading down a lot.
Makes sense.
And so I was like, yeah, I get that. And so I felt though, in order to really get into the period, something about that first person fit better.
Yeah.
But then for the other two timelines, Mary's voice, and it was funny because she was the last point of view to come in. She ended up being my favorite
Mm.
and the most closely aligned to me and my own current voice. But then Camilla her voice was easier sometimes for me as well, because it was me when I was that age.
Yeah.
And so in getting into each of those voices, I think the time periods really helped.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to transition into them more easily and make them more distinct, because there is a way in each timeline of how those women perceive things, of how they
Mm-hmm.
exist in their world.
Yep.
And so I think had they been more similar, I don't think it would have been as easy.
That's a good point.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because it's that the way I view the world is how I talk about it and how
Mm-hmm.
I think. And so that made it. This is the first time I've thought about that.
Yeah.
I really think that has to be it. It was the time periods that helped.
Yeah. Well, some of what had me, I think, noticing and thinking about it was I had Erin Crosby Eckstein, who wrote Junie. She was on a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about dramatic irony, because it's a story about a 16-year-old who's been enslaved her entire life on a plantation. And so some of the tension of reading the book is that we know how bad that time period was, and she kind of does, but she's also a teenager who hasn't like known any differently. And so then when I started reading Dark Sisters shortly after it, I was like, with Camilla, you're kind of, because she's still so young, we're also kind of having that experience where like we know stuff that she doesn't know, but it helps us think about like kind of what you're saying, like heavily indoctrinating children, like,
Right.
and they don't know any different. So I think
Mhm.
that was some of what had me like really paying attention to her perspective too, is sometimes the like teen perspective is so effective. Actually, I'm Medusa, she's 17 the whole time. And so I was having that same experience where like you have all this compassion for her because she's being groomed and she
Mhm.
doesn't know, because she's 17 and she's lived on an island with her parents her whole life. And she's like, wow, Poseidon. I mean, spoiler alert, this is a thousands-year-old story, but Poseidon just doesn't love his wife. And like, he's just so fascinated by me. And like,
Right.
it's easy to look at it and be like, girl. But then when you're like, oh, she's 17, like, you don't know yet. And so it's like even more powerful having those teen perspectives sometimes, I think,
Right. Yeah.
even in very
And
adult
that's
books.
yeah, right. Well, and I think sometimes too that I understand why that perspective can be, or that age can be, very difficult to read from an adult
Mm-hmm.
perspective, because I've seen criticism in the past, and even going back to my previous novel, Such a Pretty Smile. One of the
Mm-hmm.
characters in that book is 13,
Mm-hmm.
and this criticism of, well, it reads very YA.
Mm-hmm.
And or Camilla's character is very frustrating because it's like, girl, stand up. And I go,
Right.
I mean, I get it, as
Yeah.
I want her to as well.
Right.
But there's
Yes.
this, like you said, there's the limitation that they don't know better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of, to
Mhm.
say,
That's what I was gonna
this
say. I think the frustration is the end game. Like, you wanna feel frustrated by that, because you're thinking like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening to her, and she doesn't know any better."
right. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, I want that frustration, because
Mhm.
that's the point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about, because it's even in the title, it's Dark Sisters, in terms of like the bittersweet hopefulness of it all, it's like we can have sisterhood with people we're related to or even not related to. So was that kind of important from the get-go to include some of that as well?
oh yes, yeah, absolutely. And that also understanding darkness in other people sometimes
Mm,
create those bonds,
mm,
creates that sense of sisterhood, motherhood, because it's really not. And it's funny. I had one person who was talking to me about the book, and they said, it's funny, we have the title Dark Sisters, and I don't think there's sisters anywhere through the
yeah,
entire book. There's no real sisters.
yeah,
And I went, well, no, but I'm using it in terms of the larger sense of sisterhood,
yes,
and this idea that there can be frustration, there can be disagreement, there can be
hmm,
betrayal even, but in the end, of if there's a mutual coming back to an understanding that's
hmm,
coming from a place of genuine love and compassion and wanting to get better, that's what forges these bonds that are so incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be very particular when I say that it has to be a mutual want for
Yes.
love and advancement and betterment, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that sisterhood is sometimes painted with a very broad brush of it's
Yes.
just blanket acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what I mean. Of if we're accepting,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be accepting the dark parts of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and admitting that they're not good and that
Yeah.
they're hurtful. So that's what when I say acceptance, self-acceptance and love, it's not, well, take me as I am. No.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to build, and sometimes we have to dismantle the hurtful
Correct.
structures, and that's really what this is about. That's what creates
Yes.
that sisterhood, and I see you, you see me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's something else I've been like learning about this year is the concept of not just being an ally, but being an accomplice.
Mm,
Uh, and I felt it in this book too. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying. Like we do have to mutually want it. We have to want to help each other, and we will be better for it if we do. But yeah, none of us are perfect. So even kind of how, I mean, it's loosely related, but even how kind of like the Democratic Party has a habit of like cannibalizing candidates because they're not perfect. And you're
mhm,
like, we're
mhm.
never gonna find the perfect person. Like
Right.
like they're gonna have some flaws, and that's okay. But like even someone who is aware of their flaws is so much easier to be in relationship with than someone who thinks they have none. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And as I was exploring the relationship between Camilla and Brianna
Hmm.
in of that friendship of,
Yes.
they're very good friends, but I wanted it to be real. Camilla is ignorant.
Yes.
And you can say that it's not her fault, but she has to grapple with it and say, okay, I am, and how do I
Hmm.
fix it?
Yes.
Because that's not something you can just brush under the rug. And if you're
No.
going to have a true friend, they have to be able to say, I was wrong
Hmm.
and I'm sorry and I'm going
Yeah.
to learn from it. And so that was really important for me in their friendship as well.
Yeah. When Brianna pointed out to her that she was pretty sheltered from all of it and not actually experiencing like the full brunt of the negativity of being a woman in the path,
Right.
I was like,
Absolutely.
yeah, you like exactly what you said. Camilla doesn't know at the moment, but I've even been keeping like I'll eventually turn it into a blog post, but losing my ignorance is something that I have been talking about because there's obviously just a lot of stuff presented to me that like now I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that's how that was.
Mhm.
So yeah, her as a kind of as a mirror, Brianna kind of as a mirror was like it was fascinating because it's
Mhm.
like sometimes you do really care about someone, but you're like you've got a big blind spot.
Right. Yes. And then am I going to be brave enough to bring it up or not? Or
Exactly. And can and not just cut you off and like can I because like that doesn't solve anything either.
right.
If you're in an abusive situation, yes, cut people off, but
Right.
it's like in other situations it's like continuing the conversation that could be the most helpful.
Right.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's not always fun.
No, but very necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like we could talk forever.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot in common. We definitely love horror the same way. But obviously I love the book. We love female rage over here. So anyone who is in the mood for their next female rage, good for her. Witches are actually wonderful books. Like you
Yeah.
guys need to go pick this one up as of today, as it airs. You can go get it.
Yes.
But I do always ask at the end if you have any books that you always recommend or any books that you've loved recently.
Yes, and it's funny because okay, I have to, and they're coincidentally they're right here next to me because I've been
Perfect.
talking about them a lot lately. So the first
Oh,
one,
nice.
this is my go-to. I always recommend this book to everyone just because I feel like this is Helen Oyeyemi's White is for Riching,
Okay.
and I love Helen Oyeyemi, period. But this
Okay.
book in particular, what she does so well, if it is this genre blending, and because I love a genre blend, but
Yes.
she somehow converges this absolutely beautiful lyricism of prose
Mm,
with things that are deeply, deeply unsettling.
Wow.
And that meeting, that kind of uncanny valley feeling that happens when you're reading something really beautiful, but then also going, oh, this is awful,
Yeah.
does something to my body that
Same.
cannot be replicated. It is my favorite kind of literature where
Yes.
you're a really beautiful writer talking about really unsettling things. And this book in particular does it so, so, so well. And so this is a again, a very women-centric, women-focused story looking at 4 generations all within one family who live in a very haunted house. And the main character has pica, where she eats
Not
random things.
food. Right.
Random, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not food. And so she's starving though, because it's essentially it's an eating disorder. She's eating
Right.
things that aren't food because they're not food.
Yeah.
And but it's this beautiful, like, generational trauma ghost story.
Wow.
I can't recommend this one enough. But that's my go-to. I always recommend. But then the
Yeah.
one that I read recently that has become probably in my top 10 is this one, Elliot Gish's Gray Dog.
Okay.
And it is like my Anne of Green Gables loving. Oh, yeah, sorry, everything kind of cut out for a second. But like my Anne of Green Gables loving childhood girl heart grew up and wrote a horror book. And it is gorgeous. It's a school teacher. She moves to this small town, and the town is very strange, and weird things start to happen, and a lot of female rage in this book, and
Ah,
it is gorgeous. So those are my top 2.
I love this. I'm like already like looking if they're available on Libby.
Oh my gosh, I know. I have so many lists in my
Yes.
desk. Like for right now, has little post-it notes, just full of book recommendations.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I don't have enough time to read everything I want to read, and it makes me sad sometimes.
I know, me too.
Can't we just read all the time?
Right.
It'd be amazing. Well, thank you for coming on and talking with me and for writing this. I just love stories like this, and I know a lot of people will connect with it as well. Probably a lot just after what 2025's been like. So,
Yeah.
I loved reading it, and I'm so glad I got to talk with you about it.
Same. Thank you so much.